Alright, to begin with, once you're in Blender, generally, you make a new file, but I've got a nice setup here to show you guys some stuff, so I'm not going to do that. But generally, when you start up into Blender, there's going to be a little block, a camera, and a light. And you're going to wonder, how do I move my camera around? How do I interact with the space and whatnot? So we're going to begin with that. First of all, go into Edit, then Preferences. Now, in the Preferences menu, move down to Input and enable Emulate 3-button mouse. Now, this is important because most of you will not have a mouse with you. You'll have a trackpad, and this will let you, move around the space without a mouse. So let's X that out real quick. And to begin with, how do you rotate your camera? So you press hold down Alt and then left click with your trackpad and drag. Now this will rotate your camera, and it'll let you move around that way. And then to pan, you hold down Shift and Alt, and then you drag with your trackpad again, and this will pan you from side to side, up and down. Now if you want to scroll in or zoom in and out, just scroll up and down on your trackpad, and you can zoom in and out as well. Now on mouse, if you do have a mouse, it's a little bit simpler. It's scroll with the middle mouse button to zoom in and out. Hold down just middle mouse button to rotate while dragging your mouse, and then shift and middle mouse button to pan. So using all of those, you can move as well, depending on which you have. I'm going to quickly disable the 3-button mouse since I'm using a mouse already, but feel free to keep that on. Alright, I'm going to go back to Solid Shade. So we're in our little Blender workshop. I've got a couple things set up just to show you guys what you can do with modeling. But here I've got a couple tables that I've modeled. As you can see, it's got some legs. It's got a little bit of a bevel here. It's pretty flat. And you're going to wonder, how do I make things in Blender? And to begin with, you only have the cube. So you know what? I'm going to make a new file. So here, I have only a cube, a light, and a camera. Now, what do I do here? So the cube, to begin with, you can interact with this cube by pressing these buttons in the side here. We have move, which will let you move. Now, by dragging along these arrows, it'll only move the box on the axis that the arrow is pointing to. And if you want to undo an action, you can Command Z. And then these squares are a plane, so imagine that the red square is moving both along the blue and green lines. So as you can see, when I move it there, it'll move as if on both of those plane axes, so it won't move side to side on the red axis. So Command Z to undo. You can move, you can rotate, so rotating, same deal. If you want to do a certain axis, just hold and drag on that axis. And then if you want to just rotate it in thin air, click the white one and hold that down, and it'll kind of be an arbitrary axis. And same with moving. So if you just hold the middle, the white one, then you can move it anywhere in space. But it's not as controlled, so I generally don't do that. Then you have scale. So you have move, rotate, scale. Scale, same as everything else, scale one way, scale the other way, scale the third way, scale along a plane, scale along a plane, and then if you want to, you can also hold down the white circle and scale the whole thing uniformly. So that's all very useful. But what if you want something to be not a square, or you want a new object? Or let's say you want to get rid of an object. So if you want to get rid of an object, select the object, left click it, and then press X, and just delete it. If you want to add an object, go up here to add, and then you can choose a bunch of things. What we're going to focus on is mesh, and then you can choose any of these objects. If you want a monkey, you can have a monkey. Then you can interact with that as well in the same way as everything else. So I can, you know, scale it and deform it in many ways. But what if I want to change the shape of my cube? What if this is not satisfactory to me? What if I want something more, like a table? Well, that's what edit mode is for. So you can go to object mode to this drop down menu and click edit mode. And as you can see, it turns orange. Now this is because it's all selected. If I click off it, none of it will be selected, so it won't be orange anymore. And in this menu, there's 3 selection types. There's vertex mode, there's edge mode, and there's also face mode. And all of these will let you select different aspects of your object in different ways. So, for example, vertex mode will let me select each of these little dots, which are vertexes. And if I want to select multiple, then I hold down Shift, and then the additional ones that I click will also keep the selection of the previous. So if I click that one again, it'll remove it from the selection. If I add it while holding down Shift, then it'll be part of the selection. And this is true for also edges. So if I select one edge and then click on another with left click, it'll only select one at a time. But if I hold down Shift, it'll select all 3. And then same with face select mode. You click on a face, and then you hold down Shift, and you can select more than one. So if you are in this select box mode, then you can also click and drag as if you were on like a desktop on a computer or something to select a plural amount of faces, but it doesn't select the back because you cannot see them from the area I selected it in. But if I want to be able to select everything at once in a polygon, either I can select one face and press A to select all of them. As you can see, everything that's connected is selected. Or I can go to toggle X-ray, which is this kind of funny shaped thing in the corner. And then I can select all of them like that. And then it selects all of them. And to turn that off, just click that again. And now that I mentioned that, there are 4 different rendering views. So right now we're in solid mode, so everything's going to look gray, like this box. You know, there's no lighting, there's no textures, whatnot. To its left, there is wireframe mode. So if I click that, it's a wireframe view. You can see through it. You can see all the edges and vertices and whatnot. So that's very useful if you're, you know, modeling something more complex or you want to be able to see through something. We also have our texture preview mode. So if I gave this a different texture, which I'm not going to do right now, it would appear here, but it doesn't have lighting or whatnot. And then we have the actual renderer. So this is the actual render view. As you can see, the shadows, it's brighter up here because there's a light. So there's that as well. But right now we're just going to stick to solid shading mode just because it's a little bit faster and a little easier to on my computer. So we'll just stick to that. Now, there's a lot of functions you can do in this editing mode. If I click a face, I can, you know, do all of the basic transformations. For example, I can move it just like any object in object mode. I can Command Z to undo, you know, I can rotate it. I can scale it, as you can see. So I can do all sorts of stuff like that. But if I want to do something fancier, I can also have a lot of other transformations down here in this list. Now, there's a couple that I think you should know about, and that is the loop cut, the knife, and the bevel tool, as well as extrude. So I'm going to begin with extrude. Now, generally, I don't use the buttons down here for extrude. I just press E. So if I have a face selected and I press E, then it'll extrude it, and then if I click again, then it'll just become part of the shape. Now if I press Tab, which is the shorthand for going between object and edit mode, then as you can see, it's just a longer shape, and it's, one shape. Very nice. Not multiple shapes. So there is that, and then you press tab again, you go back to edit mode. We've got that. Let's say I wanted to add more edges to be able to work on. I can use this loop cut tool. I click it, then I can click along the edge, and it'll kind of give me a preview of where my edge loop is going to be. Now, if I don't want it directly in the middle, I can also hold down when I click and then drag it to where I want it to be. So, for example, there. And if I want to have more than just one loop cut, I can increase the number of cuts up here, either by pressing the arrows or just typing in a number. Let's say I want 9. Then when I click it, it'll give me 9 evenly spaced edge loops, which is very useful for adding geometry. Now the knife tool. So knife tool, you just click on wherever you want to add a point, so on a vertex. So I want to cut between here and there. Let's say I want a diagonal cut. I just click there, and then press enter, and then it'll just add another cut there. And what's cool about that is I don't have to, do it along a straight line. So let's say, oops, and if I want to undo something, or if let's say I start a cut and I don't want it, I just press escape and it'll undo that. Also, there's Command Z if you do something you don't want to do. So let's say I didn't want this line here, I could do Command Z until it goes away. So I'm just going to put that back. This is really useful because I can select it. Let's say I just want that. And I can move it up and have a funny shape. So let's say I'm making like a funny shaped skyscraper or something. I could do a funny roof that way. So that's really useful. You can also use the bevel tool. Bevel is good for, adding, let's say I want to do it on this face. Adding a, fun little bevel to things. It makes things look a little more clean, if you will. So we've got that as well. And using these tools, you can do all sorts of things to make a table or a chair or a bed or whatever you want to make, some kind of furniture or even, more complex things. But let's say you want to make something more natural, more earthy. Let's say you want to make something more organic. So we're going to go out of edit mode. We're just going to get rid of this object. We don't need it anymore. We're going to add, and shorthand for add is you can do Shift A, and then just I'm going to make a plane. I'm going to scale that up a little so we have a bigger plane. Then I'm going to select it and press Tab to go into edit mode. And then I can do all sorts of things to it. For example, I'm going to right click it and click subdivide. Now subdivide is really useful because when I click the little thing down here to add more subdivisions, it gives me more geometry to work with. So I'm going to say, give me 20 cuts. So press enter, or just click away, and there we go. Now I have a grid of 20 by 20. And this is useful because before, let's say I add another plane. So I go add, plane, and then I move it over. If I go into edit mode, and then I try to select vertexes or something, there's only the corners, so there's really not much I can do to edit this shape, but let's just undo that. On this big one, if I want to select, multiple squares, for example, and move them up, then I can do all sorts of fun geometry like that. But let's say I want to do something that's a little bit more organic. I can also, let's say, select a vertex and then click this circle button up here, which is soft select mode, or as it says, proportional editing. So if I have that selected and I drag up, then it'll have a kind of sphere of influence, this gray circle that you can see. And I can increase or decrease its size by scrolling up or down on my middle scroll wheel. I'm not entirely sure how you do it on trackpad. We can drag up and down, and as you increase the sphere of influence, it'll pick up more and more of the vertexes around it. And this can give you some nice curves in your geometry. So I can go like this, for example, and like that. And let's say I want it to affect very little. I can go like that, you know? So that's a nice tool to have, especially if you're doing like a landscape or whatnot. Or maybe you're making some blankets and you don't want to do an actual cloth simulation. So that's a good way to model some more, organic things. Using these tools, you should be able to make just about anything you really want to. So good luck in that.